Hello, skating fans. Welcome to another GSN News episode. I'm Mitch Whitmore, and with me, as always, is Legoland's fastest skater. Today we're going to talk about the latest happenings, especially from the last World Cup.
We got a lot of exciting news for you guys, like Mitch said. We're going to go through the results from this previous World Cup, and then we're going to look ahead towards the World Cup starting already now, because it's in Asia. A lot of new names on the results list, also a lot of the ones we know from before. Then just what else been happening in the world. We're going to make our predictions and see who did, best last time.
Check out our previous predictions, and we're going to dive into how we felt about the mixed gender relay and other events from the weekend.
That was a hectic one.
Yeah. Well, is that where we should start?
Let's dive into it. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it is a very interesting thing to watch. It's where I think that was my highest heart rate off that whole competition, was watching the mixed gender relay. Very unpredictable, and I also think the teams had no idea what was going to happen.
Right. I know, watching it and being somewhat invested in the race itself, it was interesting to decide, or really to think about before the race, is it better to be in the faster heat? Is it better to be in the heat that you can kind of just time trial it? And I think we found out that it's better to be with faster skaters. The second heat that had the Dutch, Canada, and Poland was way faster than the U.S. team that had just Connor and Kimi leading the whole way for themselves.
Honestly, that was a little disappointing. Seeing the battle in that final heat and then the U.S. team coming across the line first, I was like, whoa! And then coming to realize they finished fourth because the heat beforehand was just faster. Ultimately, third place because of a wild DQ. What do you think of that DQ?
Yeah, it's tough. If they stick with these rules and keep that as a DQ across the board, then I think it's a good disqualification. He comes out of the corner, Antoine comes out of the corner and does fade wide the entire straightaway. And you can see, because we have the lane line as a good marker, that he starts inside of it and goes outside. Now, it wasn't super blatant, but again, over the course of 100 meters, he does shift out quite a bit. And when Wesley is trying to go straight, then it's tough. But it was exciting, and I think it's something that can work in the future, but maybe there needs to be either heats or a different setup for it, because, again, it does need to be a real pack race. It can't be time versus time, and they're completely different scenarios.
You can't mix pack style racing and time trials. It just doesn't work. In the ISU's defense, I also thought about it, looking at the skaters coming across the line. That was an effort. That was more often an endurance race than a sprint race. So I could easily imagine that if they put this as heats and then further a final, I doubt that the same people will do it, because that turns into a whole different competition and a lot of effort. Yeah,
it's going to be a tough one to convince people to continue doing. The feedback from the skaters was that this was maybe the hardest race that they've done. I mean, especially for the women. You're doing a stand start 500, essentially, and then you're coming out for a guy and you're doing 2 more laps after about 40 seconds rest. That is...
Yeah, and having to get
insane training on its own.
If you look at that turn where they build up for the exchange, it's not like a smooth, nice build waiting for the push. They went all out. So where we thought of it like a 1-lapper and then a 2-lapper, it's way more of a 1,600 meter and 1,000 meter effort.
Yeah, but it was exciting, and hopefully they can take some feedback from people and adjust it accordingly.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about our predictions from the weekend. Our current total. So what we did for points, Vic and I both predicted each race as it went, and gave ourselves 3 points if you picked the winner, and 1 point if you got somebody on the podium. When we could not pick the same people, so it makes it a little bit more challenging for us. And the current point total is?
I don't know if we need this segment. Honestly, I think it's just a waste of time. So we decided to dive into it next. No, Mitch is ahead. He got 23 points. I got 19.
Closer than I would like.
I had a little too much faith in Jordan Stalls, and Kimi did really show up for the 500-meter event.
Yep.
Also, probably should have picked Miho for that 1,500 meter.
Yep, that did me well as well. But, we'll see. Only 4-point lead, so we'll do the rest of our predictions at the end of the episode.
But I do think we both agreed that Japan showed to be better than we had expected them to be. This is the first time in years where the Dutch did not win the medal tally. The Japan actually beat them, sweeping the entire men's 500-meter podium for a start, and names like
gold
Yamada.
Medals,
yeah,
right?
That's impressive.
And very noteworthy is the U.S. were also ahead. They both had 11 medals, the Japanese and the Americans, both with 11 medals. Japanese had more golds, but super impressive showings from both of them. And honestly, the U.S. team had a ton of B group podiums too. Yeah. So this Chinese World Cup could be really interesting. And
Yeah,
I have a feeling that the Dutch are going to be back on top
they're
soon.
also sending. We got to admit that Iran Strouden and
Zan
Mariah they were not present there. But I mean, the U.S. had Kimi and Jordan winning medals in all the 3 short middle distance events. Japan had Yamada winning gold in both the 1,000 and the 1,500 meter. And then, like we said, they have enough sprinters to.
Yamada crushed it. I mean, super close men's 1,500, 200s between first and third, and really tight after that as well. And Kimi went 5 for 5 on podiums. Got a little lucky with the mixed gender relay disqualification, but we're still going to count it. So really crazy weekend for them. Any other big ones from the weekend?
I think Ning showed that he's at it. I'm excited to see what he can do in Beijing next weekend. The Chinese squad will also have a new name, a name that we already do know, that we haven't seen him for a year and a half, basically. Tingyu Gao, Olympic champion in Beijing back in 2022. He skated at 35.0 in Harbin. And for those of you that don't know Harbin, it is a terrible rink.
I've been, and it is not the fastest rink that I've ever been to. So Gao looks like he's at least skating decently fast, especially when nobody's around. It's always hard to throw down. But he will start in B group this weekend, which is another reason why the ISU needs to live stream B group let us do it. But B group the first day, most likely he'll get out of B and be racing an A on day 2. There are 2 500s at this next World Cup.
Yeah. We should talk about the short track results. Kristen Santos did obviously a great job at the World Cup, but she improved beyond that at the 4 continents, where she grabbed every single gold medal in the individual distances.
Yep, really crushed it. No Kim Gilly and no Kim Boutine, so takes away a little bit of the shine of that one. But she still won in really crazy fashion. Like she was half a lap ahead on a couple of those races. So she's kind of on top form, and I like that the ISU put out that little teaser of, is Kristen Santos the best short track skater in the world right now? And it's looking like it is a definite possibility.
That question,
At least in the mix of the top 5, both guys and girls combined.
If you're not super into speed skating like we are, then we should maybe explain what 4 continents is. I don't think it's a thing they use in that many other sports, but it's basically a competition for everybody except for Europeans, just to have the equivalent of the European Championships. The issue has been, it's a fairly new event, but the issue has been that it hasn't been recognized as that much of a prestigious event yet. Right. So the previous years we've seen in the long track events that the countries just don't put their A squads there. I do hope that we'll see this in the long track event, because it's being held in Salt Lake City just 1 week prior to the World Cup there. So, I mean, if you're there, it's decent prize money. It is a cool competition, world's fastest rink. So hopefully we'll have the good name show up.
Yeah, it looks like it's teed up for a really good year. It's actually, I think, the weekend right after the U.S. trials. You've got the 4 continents, and then the World Cup in Salt Lake, and then the Quebec World Cup. So a lot of racing in January is going to be nuts. Yeah. But I think, with it being right before the World Cup, people could at least race some events to use it as a little warm-up beforehand. But last year was actually pretty exciting in Quebec City. There was a decent amount of races, especially the sprint races. It was a good competition. Yeah. Koreans brought a good squad. Kazakhstan, obviously Canada was there. So, it should be a fun event to watch in January.
Year by year, to honestly get the level improved. So hopefully we'll see that trend continue.
So back over to the long track to talk about some more results there. The long distance races, we had a couple of track records. Ragnay in the 3,000 meter. Now, again, no Erin Jackson there, who might have mixed it up with her, but really nice race there. And then Patrick Roast, who was my pick as well, another track record at a 6:10.99. Very nice race, but it was pretty close.
It was a cool
on both sides.
That track record, and it's not an easy one because there's been World Cups there beforehand, was broken first by Sander Eitram, then right after broken by Giotto and Patrick in that pair. So those 3 they were all within 2 seconds. So it's going to be quite the showdown in Beijing.
Speaking of the women's 3,000, Steven and I are doing a live commentary on our channel. Again, we can't have the stream of the actual races in the background, but we're going to try to match it up as best as we can. And this time we'll give some little markers of where it's actually at, try to put some pair names and all that up there. But we were talking about the 3,000 as such a competitive distance right now. it really across the board can kind of be anybody's race. Maybe Schouten is going to be the favorite, but the whole pack is really strong, and it's been like that the last few years. It seems like the men's 5,000 is a little bit more stretched, but
we got the three
women's
favorites.
3K maybe is the most competitive distance besides the men's 500.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we take out the men's 500. That would be the one where we see the most names on that podium over the course of the season.
Right. I'm very interested to see. And Momoka, I think, was great. Also at home, but it should be an interesting mix-up amongst that top group.
Now, Mitch mentioned it, but if you want to get real hyped for this World Cup and the coming ones, you can also go back and see the live commentaries that Mitch and Steven did for the World Cup we had in Japan. Pretty cool. I listened to some of it myself in between races and enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's been fun, and we're going to obviously get better at it as we go, and hopefully the ISU will let us just commentate over their races at some point. Fingers crossed. And B group. We're still working on that B group.
That would be sweet. Speaking of the B group, if we could have watched the B group, we would have seen the first French and the first Belgium team pursuit in a lot of years racing here in Japan, or back in Japan. The Belgians did really good. They finished on the B group podium. We had obviously Bart Swings in the front, and he cranked some left there. I don't know if he had any pushing, but he had Indra Medard and Jason Sottles stay on with him for all the laps.
That team is going to be something to look out for. We talked about that in the last episode as well, but man, I think the combo of those two are, if you don't already know, or if you come from the ice side, Bart Swings is an inliner. Jason Sottles is also an inliner.
They're good ones.
And they're very good. They were 1 and 2 in the Berlin Marathon this year. Both did extremely well at the World Championships. And I think that team could be one of, if not the team to watch out for at the next Olympics in the team pursuit.
The French team doesn't have the ideal profile, though. It's more of a middle distance skater, a sprinter, and a long distance skater. But these have worked beforehand, so we'll see how that develops.
Yeah, and what's interesting about the team pursuit or team events like that is if they aren't quite good enough on their own to maybe medal in individual distance, and they focus specifically on this. I mean, look at the U.S. team of that past quad. They weren't quite good enough to win medals on their own. Emery was getting close in that 1,500. Casey is obviously a good 5K skater, as is Ethan, but together they're much stronger, especially because they train together all the time and really put emphasis on that race. So this French team and the Belgian squad could really just put all their eggs in that basket.
We do very often see smaller teams be relatively better at the team shoot just because, like you said, they train together and they just focus on it. If that's your best chance at either making it to the Olympics or podium in World Cups, then you do care a little more and you give more effort in that.
Should be a fun one to watch over the next couple of years.
Yeah. We want to talk about some few skaters that we didn't see at the World Cup here because they are transitioning to a new country. We have some news. The 2 Russian skaters, good ones, are going to be representing Kazakhstan in the near future. The first of them is Elizaveta Golubeva. We've seen her skate a 151 in Salt Lake City. Yeah. She's medaled in a handful of mass starts and a few 1,500 meters. She's going to race for Kazakhstan, as well as Kristina Silyeva. She really had her breakthrough season just before they got banned from skating, but she skated the 37 500 meter in Salt Lake City, so Kazakhstan is definitely receiving an upgrade here.
Yeah, for the sport, it's great to see that they're going to be competing for Kazakhstan soon.
Yeah, I do wonder how that's going to work out because the official rule is that you would have to live inside that country to represent the country. Also need 1 year of no international skating before you can represent them. So I'm curious to whether they just now, integrated Kazakhstan, and that's how they do it. Another person that also switched to Kazakhstan is the very famous speed skating coach Paul Savets. He's been known for coaching a bunch of different pro teams. Kuhn Vervai in his comeback. Spoke to him in Japan, and he is now coaching the Kazakhstan team.
Wow, that's going to be something. Yeah. A little upgrade there as well, or at least another tool in the box for the Kazakhstan coaches.
Before we dive into our predictions for the next World Cup, I just want to mention that on GSN, we now started a premium subscription service. So you can subscribe to the GSN here on YouTube, and then you're going to support the channel, help us create more cool stuff like this. And you also get some fancy features. You get your own emojis, you get some premium content. As soon as we have 8 subscribers, we're going to make videos just for you guys.
Yeah, and there's all sorts of different tiers, so take a look on there. The last tier, if you're maybe more of a novice skater, Vic and I will write you a program and we'll send videos to explain what you do in those programs. But the other tiers are fun, and the baseline, again, is just you get some emojis, you get a little badge, and the longer you subscribe to the channel or join the membership channel, your badge changes. So got to get that cool penguin on speed skates. Okay, moving on to our predictions section again. The tally is 23-19.
Yep, we got
loser. And so we are going to start off with our picks for this next World Cup in Beijing. First, I've got in the men's 500, number 1, Yuma Murakami. He was right there in both 500s last weekend. I really like the way he skates, and I think he can get the job done.
That leaves me 4 Japanese 500-meter skaters to choose from, and I chose Shinhama for my 500-meter.
Yeah, Tatsuya Shinhama, he won the first 500 last weekend at a 34.4,
Yeah,
so
that's nuts.
It's a good pick. Moving on to the women's.
Yeah, Femke Kok, she won by a decent margin in the second 500-meter, and I don't feel like she had the best one on the first day. So even though we can name, 6 different people that could be on that podium, I'm going to go with Femke.
For my next pick, I'm actually going to change it up, and I'm going to go with Erin Jackson this time. Last weekend, she, if you guys didn't hear, had a crazy travel schedule. She went from the Pan American Games, and this was right after she was in Milwaukee at the U.S. Championships. So Pan American Games came in really late and was held up in Tokyo. And she still was second place on the first 500 day. Second day, she was 4th in the 500. But I think with a little bit more time to get the legs underneath her, going Erin Jackson.
It's a good call. She medaled, 2 days after she was in South America, in Japan.
And let me remind you, she did win gold at this very rink just 2 years ago.
True. For the women's 1,000 meter, I'm going to go with a U.S. skater, saying Kimi Goetz, taking your pick right there. She got 3rd in the 1,000 meter in Japan, but she also had a slip right off the line, and she was better than we've ever seen her before in the 500 and the 15, and generally the 1,000 meter is her distance. She will be up against the big favorite Judah, but she was very close.
Yes, super close, and I think that's a good pick this weekend. I think I'm going to have to go with Yuta because she is the favorite, but I think our top 3 women as of right now are very close together, so it should be a fun one to watch. Should go second 500. For the second 500 women's, I'm going to go with Kimi.
I'll stay with Femke. She did good in the second one, so I think she'll do good again.
I think day 2 is going to favor Kimi more because
More
the 500 will be
now.
first. Tomorrow's race actually is the 1500 women's first, and she is the last pair. And then it's a pretty short break because it's only the men's 500 in between, and then the women's 500 right after that. So it's going to be evil that they did such a thing. But we'll see how she does on that one. Men's 500 meter number 2, I'm going with Tatsuya Shinhama, which was his pick.
And I will take Murakami.
Wow, how we just swapped. Hopefully we get the right ones. Moving on to the 1500s, I'm going to go with the Olympic champion in this race, and I'm going to say Kjeld Naus. I think he was really close to the podium this last weekend, 200ths off of first place, so Kjeld is my pick.
All right, I'm taking a home crowd favorite, Ning. He was 3rd. And he's going to be home in Beijing, so looking to see him ranking first.
The home crowd advantage did seem to work out really well for the Japanese last weekend, so I think the Chinese could feel a little bit of that same momentum.
The 1,000 meter, man, we shouldn't forget.
Yes.
Choose there.
I'm going to go with the home crowd favorite, and I'm going to go with Zhang Yang Ning as my 1,000 meter winner.
I was going to say Jordan Stahls, but he is not going to be racing in Beijing. We should probably mention that. So I am going to say Yamada won the double, the 1,000 and the 15. Even though he's not in Japan, I see him as a strong contender, even here in China.
Yep. For the women's 3,000 meter, this time, we didn't do the women's 15. Let's do that first.
The women's 15.
For the women's 1500, this weekend, Vic gets to pick first, and
Miho Takagi. She skated one of the best 1500, one of the best races I've ever seen in Japan, winning by more than 2 seconds, I believe.
Yeah, right around there, and she dominated it, so it would be hard not to pick her.
Even outside Japan, I think she is the big favorite for this one.
This weekend, I'm going to go with Antoinette de Jong. I think the travel got to her as well. She looked a little bit off last weekend in comparison, and I think she'll be back on her.
She's been on an upwards trend, like going back to their trials where she didn't even make it in the 3K. Now
right.
She got second in the 15, so yeah, she is in a.
She's a racer, and I think now she's going to be in that Olympic venue, and she'll step back up. Women's 3,000 meter.
I am going to say the big favorite. I think there's no doubt Erin Jackson.
And I think that's a solid pick. I'm going to go with Momoka again. I'm going to stick with her all season. I think she's got the young advantage, and she's on that upward trajectory. So Momoka Harikawa.
Yeah, good call.
For the men's 5,000 meter, I'm going with, again, Patrick Roast. He set the track record last weekend, and I think he'll be pretty darn good here too.
I know he only got third this last weekend, but I'm going to say Sander Eitrim. You could see on his face right as he finished that race that he was not that content with it. And he did, I cooled down next to him on the bike where he was telling me like, that was a bad one. And I was like, I think that was pretty good. You broke the track record, but ultimately he got beaten. But just the fact that he already knew before seeing the other times that, that was not my best performance, makes me hopeful for him.
Moving on to the team events. In the team sprint men, this was kind of a tough one. It seems like most of the teams are pretty close and it could go any direction. But I'm going to go with the U.S. men. I think they've got a good group of guys that are skating well. And they're more towards the top end speed category. And I think them versus the Japanese, who are generally more of the pure sprint at the beginning. So I'm going to go with them.
Yeah, it was a difficult call. If you had asked me a week ago, I wouldn't have doubted that Canada was probably going to win this because the team, if you look at the profiles, the people they can mix in that thing, Connor Howe, Lauren DeBrey, Antoine Beaulieu, and you got 5 more names to put in there, but they just underperformed so badly here in Japan. So I'm going to say the Dutch, simply because the width of good skaters they have. Yeah,
I think those guys are going to bounce back soon, but it looks like a couple of them were just a little bit off from what we've seen in the past. Team sprint women,
also the Dutch, Gonna stay with that again. They just have so many skaters that can do an individual top 5, top 10 across all the 3 distances. The Dutch.
You see, he's going with the easy picks, right?
And, wait.
What?
I picked the U.S. for the team sprint women.
Oh yeah.
For the team sprint women's, I'm gonna pick the U.S. because they're hella good at it. They won all of them except for world champs last year. But look at that team. They done good already. And with Kimi and Erin getting first and second in 500 meter, it's an easy pick.
Yep, I think that's a solid pick. For my pick, I'm going to go with the Canadians. Again, Evany is skating really well right now. Solid 1,000 meter. And she was right there in the mixed gender relay. And she may or may not have won it with her squad, but then DQ'd. But anyways, Team Canada, I think, is going to be my team sprint women.
Good call. Now you hyped Evany up so much that I'm going to pick her for the Mastard women's. She won this one, and I know Erin Jackson's going into it as probably the big favorite. But I mean, Evany's doing a great job, and she's already going racing wise. So I'm going to say Evany.
Okay, and I will go with the crowd favorite as Irena Schouten. Surprise. I will go with somebody a little outside at the current time, and I'm going to say for the men's mass start, Sung-Hoon Lee is going to be my pick.
I do hope Mitch is right here. I'm going to say Bart Swings. He is very consistent in his racing. I know the other Bart Holworth, beat him in Japan, but I think he'll have it this time, and even though it would be super cool seeing a living legend, Lee, take the win.
He was right there. I think it can be done.
Yeah.
So we'll see how we do on the next episode.
Yeah. Join us. Give us your best guesses in the description below. We did not see anybody take or guess the right winner in all the distances, so we still got some free World Cup tickets up for grabs.
And we'd love to give them away. So again, we'll give the link to each distance in the description below. You just copy and paste and add your picks. And hopefully we get to give away some tickets in Stavanger or Tomashev, Poland.
I think that you did get right was our question of the week, our trivia. Stephen Hartman, great friend of the show here and also co-commentator during the World Cups, he guessed, or he knew that the 2 skaters that have been at the Olympics for skating, but also at the Summer Olympics were?
It was Vincent De Heetre and Martina Sablikova. Both in cycling, but Martina's was road cycling and Vincent's was the track cycling.
Very impressive, and we can still see both of them at the World Cups this season.
Yep, and they're not the first. There have been quite a few speed skaters that have done track cycling over the years as well. Chris Whitty was one. There's been a few Dutch skaters, so yeah. For our trivia question next week, we've got one on the sprints. What in long track speed skating is the fastest 100 meters skated by a man and by a woman? What are the two fastest 100s ever skated?
Time and the skaters.
Time and the skaters. Well, thanks everyone for watching our GSN News episode. Again, be sure to comment any questions or your predictions for next week down below. Let us know anything that you want to see in future episodes.
Yeah, stay tuned for this weekend's racing and all the upcoming shows. We're looking forward to have you back here in the channel.
Yeah, we've got our live commentary starting tonight for all 3 days of racing. Again, you just need to pair it up with the actual racing going on, and we'll give you some inside scoop of what's happening. And we're going to try to have some Zooms with some of the current skaters at World Cup, so interesting takes there.
Yeah, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe, and if you really like what we're doing and want to see us do more of it, then also click to subscribe to that premium
memberships. Okay, thanks for tuning in.
Bye-bye.